they have been fun. These have been fun. I've got to know. I mean, if you've been watching them, I got to know a ton about people I didn't know, and I suspect it's true of other people too who've watched those videos.
Yeah, no, it's been good. It's been good.
Yeah. So Cody, we're going to be talking to you tonight about your life, your ambitions, your dreams, your hopes, your fears.
Sounds good.
The things you've learned, the things you wish you could learn.
I'll try to be vulnerable and honest and give you straight answers.
You have been watching.
a little bit.
That's very cool.
I'm a huge fan of it, Uncle Tim. I think everybody should get a chance for. I mean, I know it's a huge time dedication on you, and if there's any way I can support you in any way, monetarily or any ideas, even submit. I'd love to help you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. No, I'm not. Again, it's not about any kind of money at all. It's just, we're just all family. We're getting together to do this. So, sheesh, if you say you're going to show up, show up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you.
But you think I'm just sitting around waiting to? Anyway, that's all behind us. But just to kind of talk about this because it just happened. As you know, Tina and I went to the Lamb of God tonight.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Have you heard about it?
I've heard a little. It's not a choir kind of thing, is it?
Well,
I could be completely off.
It's like a filmed concert.
Okay.
I wouldn't call it a choir, but they have a full orchestra, or nearly a full orchestra. And they don't do it. You don't see actors acting out the life of Christ or the Easter story, but you do hear them singing songs about Christ's atonement, the resurrection, the Last Supper, those last days, and it's very moving. If you like music, if you feel the spirit at all through music, you'll love it. But it is going to be acquired. When you first go in there, you'll be like, "What is this? This is different." It is different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not like you've seen before, but it's well worth it. I mean, if you get a chance to go, you should try it.
Is it a Tri-Cities thing, or like how often do they do it?
No, I don't know what theaters it's in, but I think it's released nationwide now.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
I mean, it was filmed in Utah. It's got a lot of BYU influence in it. And you can tell, I mean, the talent is off the charts great. The singing is amazing. You'll definitely feel the spirit and learn more about the gospel. Maybe more a reiteration of what you already know, but it's always good to feel the spirit, I think.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Especially this Easter time of year. I mean, it's good to go through that last week of Christ's life and remember what he did. So, yeah, I'll have to
absolutely.
Thanks for telling me about that.
Cool. Yeah, sure. So what are you up to this week?
This week was, so I work for BYU Idaho in the sports department for intramural sports. So this week was really just wrapping up sports. Last week was the last final games and championships. And this week they cut it off right before finals, intramural sports. So just wrapping sports up and then studying like crazy and getting ready to say goodbye to some friends. And that's really what it comes down to. Nothing more than that. A lot of
you, you're in, I'm sorry, I should have paid attention. You're either in Rexburg or Provo, right?
Rexburg, yes, sir.
Rexburg. So, okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So do you run into your cousins very often?
Not like we would have back when Taylor and Dax and those guys were here, because we had 20 or 30 of them up here at a time, it felt like. But yeah, I live with Gage Taylor, and I try and see Jacob as often as you can. His schedule is a little crazy though, having a wife and kid. But yeah, we try and get together as often as we can. So I see Gage every day, and then bumping into McKaylee Specht and other kids is about every other week thing. Or That's about how often it happens.
Yeah. Um, so what year are you in school?
I'm finishing my third year. I'm technically a junior.
And
My
what are you studying?
my major is public health sciences emphasis.
And what do you hope to do with that?
Long story. So physical therapy is actually when it comes to serious career, physical therapy is the big plan. But public health is a good thing to get into because there's enough elective room where you can fulfill um, clinical classes like anatomy and physiology or kinesiology or chemistry and physics, all those classes that I have to take as prerequisites for physical therapy. But public health just gives you a better feel for insurance. You'll take hospital classes and hospital administration, and just gives you a better feel. So that's the major. I kind of felt like I get the widest um, range of knowledge when it comes to medical and just kind of the know-how, um, make better routes. We've got some really good connections with lots of different places in Utah with our one of our deans, and we have some really good grand round meetings. But to be completely honest with you, I'm hoping to be a seminary teacher, Uncle Tim. But you have to have a bachelor in something, not seminary teaching. So public health sciences with physical therapy prerequisites is the plan, and then see if I can become a seminary teacher.
Good for you. Um, I think, I mean, when I think about, if you think about the money that's involved, you'll be able to survive. But when I think about the other aspects of life that you get, man, it's superior.
Yeah,
You'd be really blessed if you could make it.
yeah, and you say if you can make it, you understand it's competitive for
Very
sure.
much so.
Yeah. Who have you heard? Can I ask you what's your experience? Who have you talked to, James, or just anybody?
Well, I tried to get hired.
Yeah. Okay.
Originally, I tried to get hired on when I got home from the mission. I wanted to get hired on at the MTC
Okay.
in a way to prep for maybe being a seminary teacher. My patriarchal blessing talks a lot about working with the youth, and so I thought that was what it was talking about. And it may be not as a seminary teacher, but other ways. But they never called, and I don't know. Since then, you have to be. Uh, when I think about people who are teaching seminary, don't get me wrong. I know they're not perfect.
Hmm.
I know they make mistakes, but I hold them up on kind of a pedestal. And I think, in retrospect, this isn't to say I'm guilty of anything horrendous or anything, but I think they probably made the right choice. I mean, I think it takes a special person to be a seminary teacher. So you seem like a kind of person who would really do well in that role.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Tim.
Yeah.
We'll see though. It's competitive, and um, they know what they're looking for, and you got to be able to connect with the kids. And there's just some things you can't teach people that they're looking for. So yeah, we're giving it a shot and see if it works out. If not, great. I'd love to be a physical therapist too. I've got no problem with the backup plan. So we'll see how it works.
I I have a nephew on my side of the family who's from, I think they live in Moses Lake now. You know the Jensens, right? Dax's wife
Mhm,
is a Jensen.
mhm.
So Dave Jensen married my niece Lachelle from Cache Valley, and he's a physical therapist.
Okay.
And then I had a mission companion, Cloward, Elder Cloward. He's a physical therapist somewhere, I think in Oklahoma, maybe.
Okay.
But that could be a really good career, money wise. I mean, you probably make more money doing that than you would be a seminary teacher, but you won't
Oh,
have the spiritual benefits.
yeah, yeah. Easily, you can make a lot more money, especially if you traveled. They have traveling physical therapists that I've talked to. A buddy from the Tri Cities is a physical therapist, and you can get out of debt pretty quick. I mean, you travel all over the country and potentially internationally, but yeah, you can get out of debt quick, and then make a lot of money there first 5, 10 years if you did that. So I love it.
Well,
It's fascinating for me.
I think a lot of times, when I was first came into the family, I would have a lot of people that would say, what are you doing now for a living or whatever. They'd always ask those questions, and I that was always not comfortable discussion for me because I was kind of private and I didn't really want to talk about it. But B, I thought, there's a lot more to me than what I do.
Mhm.
Um, so, you know, I don't believe in the prosperity gospel. You know, I know that even though in many ways when I was growing up, that's how I was taught. So, so having said that, um, as you're starting to, well, actually, you're in the finishing touches of your education and you've got some plans. What you're going to have uh, people that are younger than you in the family. They're going to watch this. What would you say to them to help prepare them for what you're experiencing?
Oh, I would say, um, this is going to sound, I'm sure they've probably heard this 100 times before, but kind of find your passion, find your dream. I thought about teaching high school or teaching teenagers would be a lot of fun for a long time, but the thought of teaching in a public school did not sound entertaining to me, especially when I heard people's experience like Aunt Brenda and my mom, where they talk about how it's changed, the education system has changed, and how much of a hindrance it can be, the system and unions when you want to do good. So I kind of pushed away from that until just over the summer, the thought came in, you know what? Seminary teaching would be able to, you'd be able to teach the gospel and you'd love it and it'd be a lot of fun. There wouldn't be a ton of money in it, but give it a shot and think about it. And just the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I loved the thought of it. So I just started reaching out, and I'd say, yeah, just be really in tune for what is fun and what you love to learn, and then just find a way to make money with it. If it's an entrepreneur making your own business, awesome. If it's medical, go as deep as you can into whatever subject and do it. But that's the advice that I would give is don't be afraid to dream big. You'll be surprised with how much you can do when you put in hard work. So just
You know, uh,
give it a
Keola
shot.
gave similar advice to that, and I think it sounds pretty sound. What? How do you how do you think youngsters should go about experiencing? Okay, so let me rephrase. When I was young, we had a scouting activity called there were explorer scouts, and as part of exploring, we would go around. Our leaders would take us around, and like maybe we'd go on ride-alongs with the sheriff's department, or we would go to uh, the planetarium, or
Mhm.
any number of different career choices, including like maybe even come and look at our dairy farm, that kind of thing, to give me and other explorers kind of a look at what's available out there. First, what do you think kids today should do to experience some things? I mean, I think they can watch YouTube videos, but what else do you think?
Something that I've seen is you hear about networking all the time, but I think it goes to one of the weaknesses that is coming up, and I definitely saw myself is we're in an age of distraction with technology and just different things. And I think if if we really take advantage of those opportunities that we're given, like our prescorn would do the same thing. We'd go out and we went to the cube mill, we went to the paper mill, we just did lots of different things, and just get your feet wet in as much as possible. Because that's where it really comes down to. I hate hearing I know somebody that went through dental school, got into dentistry, and realized he hated it. He's 30 years
Yeah, but
old.
there's a chance for Wes to get out of that if he wants to. Woo! Timing is everything, baby.
No, I know Wesley loves it. I know Wesley loves it.
He does. That's why the joke is funny. I know he loves it.
But yeah, just don't get distracted. Don't be complacent with anything from video. I mean, there's so many things, social media, video games. Learn to relax. Yeah. Enjoy your teenage years. But it's a lot like investment. As much knowledge as you get when you're young, it's only going to increase and compound later exponentially. So if you can get a good, strong base with however it is, go for it. And that's just going to make things so that much easier and faster later on in life, which is hard to do. I mean, when you're a teenager, you don't have friends that are in a career that have done this major or have studied here or know this person. So it's a little harder, but that's what I would say is advice is just get your feet wet in as much as possible. Even if you think you wouldn't like it, go and learn about it and confirm that before you check it off.
Okay. All right. That's good advice. That's good advice. So if you did become a seminary teacher, let's just assume you're going to do that for now. And where do you, in your mind, where do you see the ideal place working would be?
Honestly, the majority of the jobs when it comes to working with the church and seminary teaching are along the Rocky Mountains. So just Idaho, Utah, and Arizona. That's where it's most prevalent. And then you get a little in the eastern parts of Washington and Oregon and some in California. But outside of that, it's pretty scarce. And I would tell this to people all the time, even with physical therapy. I would love to go if I have a wife and kids, which you have to be married for a male. You have to be married to be full-time seminary teaching. So that's.
You can imagine the disaster that could come there.
Yeah. So still figuring it out, but I would love to go back east and just soak in the Civil War, Revolution, just the history that's out there and the culture, and to grow towards my wife in that experience. Of course, we'd have to work with her and her family, me and my family, if we're blessed with children through that. But that sounds like a lot of fun. Is going out east. It would be really hard. It'd be really hard coming to doing seminary teaching. You'd be working with 5 classes of 5 to 10, if there's even the opportunity out there. But that sounds fascinating to me. That sounds like a dream, just going out east for 5 years and learning as much as I can with as many different people as possible.
Man, I could see a real opportunity being somewhere around, the name of the school's escaping me, but the church school in Virginia.
Yeah. With Virginia Tech, or
yeah, and I forget what it's called. Is that what it's called? Virginia Tech?
Can't remember.
Oh, that's where they had the shoe. Anyway, we both know the school we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I looked into what's there. It's pretty big now as far as like LDS influence. There's lots of there's a temple right there, I think, in Falls Church, Virginia, or somewhere close by there. But lots of members there now. I would think that would be ideal too, and beautiful country, you know.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just seminary. With SNI, it's seminary and institutes too. So it's a different age bracket. But yeah, there's a lot of seminaries out east too, and all across the Midwest and South. So there are opportunities out there.
Now, what do you think about teaching at a Catholic seminary?
Oh, never.
It's kind of a joke, I know.
I'll have to look into it.
Because I mean, like in the military, you can be a what are they called in the military? Yeah, doesn't matter what faith you're from, you can fill one of those roles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you dating anyone special right now?
Not currently. Not currently. So if you know anybody that's here, up here in Rexbury, let me know, Tim.
I would
Yeah.
think Rexburg would be crawling with 6-foot blondes.
I'll be honest, those blondes scare me sometimes. So good, Tim. No, no, I try to go on dates, try to meet as many people as I can. But no, currently I'm not dating anyone. Lots of
Yeah.
good girls. There are lots of good girls up here.
You Jinx boys were raised right. You have good attitudes about things.
We try to.
I mean, because times are different. I've talked to some of the other nephews about. I don't know if you've ever heard the word hypergamy before.
Can't say I have, no.
You can look it up after. But basically, it's kind of an attitude that some girls carry today. And don't get me wrong, I think if any girls deserve to carry the attitude of hypergamy or to believe in hypergamy, it's girls in the church, but it just seems like overall, men are required to achieve a certain level of something before they're considered a good catch, whereas this is just my study of the culture. I just don't feel like as many women today are putting in the work to be a good spouse to a man who is an alpha male. And you are, I kind of feel like everybody who's stepped up for these interviews is an alpha male in many ways, but LDS kids in general who have served missions and who are doing things that are responsible have prepared themselves, or they are preparing themselves, and you are too. And so you deserve someone who has prepared herself. So I know that's one of those things where like, okay, now what do I say? But well, I said all that to
for you, if that's okay.
Say that again.
I've got a question for you to
sure
kind of get a little more. So how would you say it relates to entitlement? I think there's a lot of entitlement with our generation that hasn't, compared to the greatest generation, Grandpa Gibbons, my Grandpa Jinks that served in the wars. How do you think it relates to that, where we're born into this amazing society and they're wanting to correct it and make these changes, when from our grandparents' perspective, I mean, do you really have a right to? What do you think of that?
I think the apple has fallen quite far from the tree. Meaning, it seems like in today's world, we have the best of the best and the worst of the worst. We still have kids who are willing to put in the work, who understand that it takes effort, it takes, sacrifice, it takes all those good things that the greatest generation did to achieve great things. But we do have more and more people who think they're entitled to something. And I really don't. I think I want to give people a bit of a break in that I think that there is a plan of the evil one. And he is going about his business methodically, and he's getting it done because he knows how to appeal to people's their sense of entitlement. He knows how to appeal to their vanity. He knows how to appeal to the envy culture. It's changing now because people are rejecting Facebook, Instagram, and social networks. Don't get me wrong. I know that people still live their lives there, but those platforms aren't bringing in the ad dollars like they used to, because kids, I'll take my kids as an example. Kids are not as materialistic as their parents. That doesn't mean they don't that doesn't mean they don't want nice things, because you see the YouTubers who are driving their Lambos and who are making good money. But what I didn't see up until your generation was this willingness to help other people. in some ways, your generation has so much good going on. I truly do believe that you guys were, I know it's cliche, but you were saved at this time for a specific reason. And that is that it's not to say that the worst of the worst are here, but the very elect are being deceived and are being led away, and they're chasing after things that they think will make them happy. And then there's the other side of that, which is people both in the church and actually, let me rephrase that, because I'm saying something I don't believe. I find this stuff to happen both in the church and out of the church. Like, the church doesn't have a corner on the market on good kids.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And there's plenty of bad kids. And there's kids who struggle. I shouldn't say bad kids. There are kids who are struggling every day. Some kids are struggling every day just to want to keep living. You know, I grew up kind of like you Jinx kids. I mean, I was running free with bare feet and in the manure all day. You know, I mean, that's the way that, you know, we were hauling hay and playing in the river bottoms and, you know, shooting pheasants and catching carp. And, you know, it was like a magical kingdom of childhood. And not everybody gets that. And so, you know, you asked me what I think is going on. Boy, kids are waiting later and later to get married now. And yet you still find it's not, I wouldn't say it's the rule now, because you still find kids who jump right in and get married and just go for it. And the fact is that you can't really lump people into these buckets, because even if you say, okay, boy, so-and-so's struggling, you know, they're having a hard time. They just can't get it together. Well, that's just right now. That's at this time. And one of the things I love about your generation, you know, and this is your brothers and sister and your cousins, is when you all are more likely than not to not even, you may think about it, you may even talk to each other about it. But if you experience someone in the family like that, or even on the street, you guys are more likely to not even think about that. Like, you're more likely to just invite them to play football or go to a movie or whatever, in spite of whatever it is they're challenged with, right? And I think that's just remarkable. It's one of the biggest regrets I have of my teenage years. I had a brother that was 1 year younger, and I think to this day, so okay, I'm waxing long on this answer, but
You're good. I love it.
We would go into town on the weekends, on Friday night, Saturday night, whatever. We'd go to Logan, Smithfield, you know, hang out. It was a Letterman. I was into everything high school, which that's good and bad. Except for when I was in school, I know they were there. Drugs were there. You know, marijuana was there. Drinking was there. I never was tempted with any of that stuff. That stuff never even hit me until after my mission. Which is strange, because I mean, it hit my kids like like crazy.
Yeah.
But things that did hit me, you know, there was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of racing of cars, and I mean, it was very much like Americana of old, you know. But if we weren't as likely to be super friendly with kids from another high school, whereas seems like the youth of today, they may just very well be going out with those kids from another high school, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, Code, it's remarkable, because I see what we've all talked about, you know, this generation that's been withheld for these last days. In many ways, I think you guys have an opportunity to take the title of the greatest generation. But in order to do that, you know, there's going to have to be you're going to have to answer some questions culturally. For example, everybody seems to be moving at breakneck speed towards communism. And I say everybody, I want to qualify that answer, because I think the media convinces us that everybody is moving that direction. And I don't want any of these things to be political, but the person with the initial, we have to be careful with YouTube. Algorithms, but the DJTs of the world did not lose. So somehow, some way, your generation is going to have to fix the graft, greed, and corruption that the secret combinations that, man, if you didn't have a
real.
testimony, they are. Yeah,
absolutely.
I would say that any member of the church, okay, so you don't think the church is true? Well, how is it that almost everything the Book of Mormon warns us of is happening right in front of your eyes?
Yeah,
that's a reality.
Yeah, and undeniably so. I mean, if you really get into a study of it, and I mean, it doesn't take much. Just this means this means this, and it's pretty clear, absolutely clear.
Plus, and nobody believes I got into this with Blair a little bit because she's apparently delved into the world of I don't think we can even use the word that starts with C and ends with conspiracy. But I've told her she's not a theorist, she is a scholar, right? So you're either a C theorist or a C scholar, because C's, and you know the word I'm talking about, I'll put it up on the screen. They're real. They're real. And it's just like a secret combination is a C. In fact, if you look it up in the Bible dictionary, look up secret combination and it will use the word.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so isn't it interesting, though, that we live in a world today where our intelligence networks made up a phrase or a word so that they could vilify people who started to understand truth. And it's true. We know this is one of those things where, I'll talk to somebody about this when I'm deciding to wax political, and they'll kind of give me that look like, oh, Uncle Tim, you're cute and all, but that just doesn't.
No.
That doesn't. Let's not talk. I just don't believe that. You're full of it. And I'm just like, okay, look, I am not going to sit here. And I don't mean this with you. I'm just talking about in general. I'm not going to sit here and entertain somebody who hasn't even bothered to study. When I tell you something, it isn't because I made it up in my mind. It's because I read it in a report. It's because I listened to a Senate hearing or something of the like. So those things are real. Now, to me, that's enough. So we know that they're real. So as we bring this back down then to cousins, nephews, nieces, man, it should give you the strength to testify of truth, and to help each other. Do you, what's your calling in the church right now?
I'm currently, see if I can get this right, assistant to the executive secretary. Kind of just another secretary.
So do they give you the keys to the kingdom, so to speak? I mean, do you get system access?
Somewhat. Not a ton of CDAL. But yeah, there's some things in LDS tools that I can look up.
Okay, cool. All right. So why did I ask you that question? I think it's just because there's an opportunity, if you can live your life so you have the Spirit, like you did on your mission, that you'll be able to testify with boldness without being overbearing. I tend to wax overbearing. You'll be able to testify with boldness and tell the truth, and you'll be believed because you'll have the Spirit with you. And I look at you guys, you guys who've done the interviews, some others who've talked to me about doing the interviews. You all have the ability to testify with boldness. You all have the ability to, you already are. You're already leaders. You just gotta just keep living it. If you watch the interviews, and I know you have, but if you watch the interviews, we keep using that phrase that I think it was, oh my heavens, who's our German general authority? Uchtdorf. I think Uchtdorf was the first one who said to teach the gospel and when necessary, use words, right?
Use words, yep.
So you've heard that in some of the other interviews. And
I
I think that keeps coming into my mind, because when I think about you guys, that's what you guys are. I mean, you're like the living, breathing, walking, talking, full-time missionary still, even though you're home. What are you teaching is the question, right? I have to answer the same question for myself. But I don't have, so a week and a half ago, I ran the disc for Carlin for a couple of days. I didn't have anything going on in my business, and so I disc some of his fields, getting ready for him to plant peas. And he bought this tractor and refurbished it and everything. But I'm sitting in there, and we've got it, the seats cranked to the right like you do, and he's got it all set up nice. It runs off the GPS, so it's not like it's a ton of work. But I'm constantly looking over my right shoulder, because I'm always worried that I'm pulling a big pile of dirt behind in the disc or something, like I'm making adjustments. And somehow, some way, I yank something either in my hip or in my groin that makes me feel like I'm gonna die even when I get in and out of the car. Now it's getting better now, but the point I'm driving at is you get older. And that's not to say that I can't testify, I can't live my life and try to be an example to others. But I think that roles change. My role is going to become more of, I've always been a better coach than a player, but my role is going to be a coach in this kind of thing moving forward, and be awed by the generation that followed me, you guys. It's actually one of the things that makes this really fun, because in a roundabout way, I get to associate with you guys doing these interviews. I'm like a poor man's, now I can't remember the name of the guy. I'm like a poor man's Joe Rogan, right?
Hey, I'd put you right up there with him, Uncle Tim.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. You made my night.
Just minus all the cussing and the weed smoking during the interviews, right?
Right. There's a way, though. There's a mannerism that he carries, and minus the F-bombs. I don't drop F-bombs, but there's an attitude he carries, though, just a kind of a no nonsense, no baloney. We're just going to get to the truth, which I want to emulate that piece. And that's why, and you opened this up by saying that you were going to be, vulnerable and be truthful and stuff. It can be hard because your parents are watching these. I mean,
yeah,
the parents have made comments. I don't know if they're watching them all the way through, so we save all the bad stuff for the very end of the interview.
Good. I was open for that.
No, I don't think there is any bad stuff. There's a difference in belief, and I'm not saying I'm right about this. I'm going to let you speak in your interview here in just a second.
Take your time. Take your time. I love it, Uncle Tim. I love it.
Well, I'm not right about this necessarily, but I do think there's way more good that comes from honesty than from the vanity of pretending that you're something you're not. Like there's no reason to put on airs, right? Especially with family. I've always found that even in my family down in Utah, it's so distasteful for somebody to come off like they're holier than thou and they've never made any mistakes, and so along these lines, and I make my own mistakes every day, but we're sitting in this movie. I won't give you the name of the guy, but he's a very prominent LDS guy in the area, very prominent. And so we're sitting here trying to watch The Lamb of God, this movie, and his iPhone goes off 3 times during the movie. He's sitting right next to us. And here's why I struggle with that. I felt like it was just so rude. And I knew enough about him and the way that he was functioning that he knew how to put the thing on silent. Mm-hmm. But he didn't, so instead we get and I call it the arrogance of, I'm a very busy businessman. And don't get me wrong, I felt like the greater sin would have been for me to challenge him at the end of it. Like, why don't you silence your phone? That's what I wanted to say, but I chose, and Tina was there with me, but I chose to not go there, to try to take a higher road. Although I've still got to repent because I was carrying some real negative feelings, especially when we came out. And even when we came out, he's saying, "Yeah, I'm sorry about that. We run this business," and I just felt like saying, "You didn't answer any of the calls. You didn't answer any of the calls." Turn off your phone.
Oh man.
So that's one of the places where I really do struggle. I'm constantly having to check myself, because I'm probably no different than anybody else in that it's easy, again, better coach than a player. It's easier for me to recognize it in other people and in myself. But hey, I'm getting better. Otherwise I would have said something to him. Like you talked about high school. Back in high school, oh man, we would throw down at a moment's notice. Oh, lots of fights. Skyview and Logan, lots of fighting. I was probably guilty of using way too many colorful words. You know what I'm saying?
I love these interviews, Uncle Tim. I love these interviews.
Well, when I used to look at pictures of your grandpa Taylor, pictures of his merchant mariner days, and I've got my father and his brothers, my uncles and stuff. Those guys weren't perfect. None of them were perfect, and I just think, while there may not be a huge benefit in knowing, you don't have to know everybody's dirty laundry, but knowing that someone that you admire struggled, to me, is a huge benefit, because that means, for me anyway, when I think about that, it means, I can make it. I can, he struggled. Like, I really dig the heck out of that guy. If he struggled, I can make it. That's not to say I don't have a lot to correct. I do, but anyway. Now, your turn. I don't even know how this happened. That was genius on your part. How'd you do that? Because Vard, when I was talking to Vard, he's like, I want to do this again, Uncle Tim, but I'm going to be the one asking you the questions. So yeah, that was good. But so tell me, what do you see? What do you see in your generation?
I see. I love how John, by the way, puts it in I think it's in No Brainers. It's an old one, but he says, he asked the question to the audience, what does idol mean? And he says, when you see a Chevy Camaro, Hemi V8 engine sitting in front of a red light, it's idling. It's huge amounts of power doing nothing. And I think, and maybe this is because of my pet peeve, but it hurts, Uncle Tim, to see good men and good women idle. Just, you can see it in their eyes and just the way they talk. You just know, man, you are so smart and you've got good things going for you. But why are you sitting around doing nothing? Why aren't you out helping somebody? And I don't want to say lazy. I want to say idle, because I think it hints towards the power that's in these kids, and some of these kids that I've seen, and I can't say wasted, because their life's not over. A lot of these kids are still in their prime. And younger than me, 10 years younger than me, some of these, it's interesting, Uncle Tim. I meet somebody up here and they're like, I was born in 2002. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm getting on the old scale up here. But I think that's what hurts the most. And I think I see a lot of that. But it is impressive to see kids that are recognizing their potential. I think that's where it happens, is they don't recognize their potential. and they don't find motivation, they don't find passions, and they don't find things that they love, and they're just content with what they get, you know. Um, but there's nothing more inspiring. Some of the kids I work with, um, just they put in the work and they're not afraid of anything. I could give them any of the events or the projects that we worked on, or any personal added on project, and they say, "Yeah, let me work it in my schedule." And they take it in stride and they work with it and they work with other people. And it's incredible how you get aces of all trades when they're firing on all eight cylinders and they're just going as strong as they can. And they're always sharpening the saw, as Abraham Lincoln would say. They're always always looking for ways to improve themselves and for critique. So
Now, I may have missed something. Are you applying that to a job you're doing currently?
yeah, yeah. Currently with my job, some of the kids I work with in the sports program.
What is your title?
I am sports lead, sports intramural sports lead in student activities would probably be my job title.
Wow. How many kids are in intramurals?
Participants wise,
Yeah,
oh man,
thousands, I imagine.
normally, yeah, we'd get up to the thousands. If you even count some of the kids that do multiple sports at a time, you easily get into the thousands. There's kids that would do ultimate frisbee when we're outside, and then they are on two different intramural rec basketball teams. Um, but yeah, this semester was a little lower, and our trials and our struggles were a little different. But yeah, there's because it's so cheap compared to other schools, like you go to Montana State just 4 hours up the road, or down to Weber or something. They can make sports really, really cheap here. And we get a lot of participants. We get a lot of participants.
So I'm curious. Like, there was a time when I would go through the airport, and I don't go through the airport as much as I used to, but when I felt like, with a great degree of confidence, that I could walk up to, I could recognize the spirit in almost anyone that I could see. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. If a person was LDS, I felt like I was probably 90% accurate in just looking at their countenance. Like, I could walk up and say, "You're LDS, aren't you?" And they'd probably say no, or they'd say, "Yeah, I am actually," or "No, but I know one," or something.
Yeah, yeah.
So that thing that you're talking about, and I've seen this in myself. I saw it in my mission too, and you might have. I want to ask you this question: the people who kind of drop out and who aren't participating, do you? I see. I think it's one of the. Well, let me ask you this before I answer what I think. Why do you think that is? Why do you think they're kind of stepping back?
Um, well, I've got a friend. He just doesn't see it as worth it. He just he says, why put even at a cheap school with BYU Idaho, with after housing and tuition and everything, it's only about you could if you're budgeting, it could be less than $10,000 a year compared to 40 or $50,000 a year. And he's saying, why am I going to do that when I can go work construction and potentially own two houses and have a steady income, sleep without even clocking in to work by the time you graduate, and putting that money into something else. So some of them, I think they're smart, and others, I think, some get overwhelmed. Some depression and anxiety is very real, very, very real. Sadly, I'm lucky to be blessed. I'm so lucky to be blessed with good family, good connections, and I've been able at times when it gets hard to vent with somebody or to connect with somebody. But there's things where that face-to-face interaction leads to kids just it's overwhelming. And so why keep pushing for something where you don't see the end, instead of going back to something comfortable where you feel like you can survive? And I think that's part of it.
Have you ever struggled with depression?
No, not clinical depression. But there was a time about 3 years ago, actually, it was just coming out of the winter semester. And I wouldn't even say it was depression, but it was definitely loneliness, or just even being able to be in a crowd of people and still feeling I feel alone. Even a crowd of
Oh yeah.
people I knew and I hung out with all the time, but just not having an emotional connection with them, or not feeling understood.
You know, wow, this is sort of a walking laboratory, because when I think back to, you were a little bit on the younger side of this, but you played too. But we used to play football over there at Grandma Taylor's house, and then the Wells's house in their front yard. It was a regular thing. And then
Yeah.
when we had the house on Fairway, and then you guys used to play at other places too. But we played football a lot of places, and not to say that somebody then wasn't struggling, but I think that when you have a huge support network, when you have all those cousins, and you're doing things and you're active, it's much harder to think about your problems than to just engage in activity and have a cousin just pull you along and say, no, we're going to mutual or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Um, I've seen the light of Christ melt out of people's eyes because they consider themselves unworthy because of some stupid thing, you know. Um, and when I say stupid, what I mean is, I think that the principle of repentance was taught somewhat incorrectly for a lot of years, and I know I'm like, ooh, I'm way down on a limb saying that, but what our your state president to our state president, you probably heard me talk about this with somebody else, but he taught the four major misconceptions of repentance. And one of them is that it takes a long time to repent, when really that's a misconception. That's not, when you think about Christ, is that really, I mean, when you picture Christ, pulling out a checklist saying, oh, yeah, I'd like to have you serve a mission, but you haven't waited your year yet, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's not
Um,
how it's treated.
no, it's not helpful to sit around and wallow. What you need to do is go to work. You need to be anxiously engaged, right? You need to be busy. And in point of fact, someone who did struggle with depression, uh, President Holland, said the same thing in a recent talk that he gave, which is interesting because it's different than the way it had been traditionally taught for so long. And I think that policy wise, I think the church is realizing we don't have time to have people sitting around wondering about their souls and uh, thinking about their problems and getting depressed. No, we've got to pull people back in. They have to be engaged. They have to be active. They have to be busy. And what we need to do as brethren is wrap our arms around each other, love each other, and get moving. Like how, okay, it's really weird, right? I mean, struggles are really weird. Everybody struggles. Everybody struggles. 7 billion people on the earth are all tempted, probably all tempted sexually, right?
Yep.
So let's accept that as fact, and then let's figure out how we can help each other instead of figuring out how we're better than someone else because we don't have that struggle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I hear that. It's interesting you talk about that, and you talk about connection. If I can bring up two things in the singles ward, there's one of the branch um, counselors. He struggled with alcohol and I don't know how much of drugs, but the point he said, and it stuck with me. He said the opposite of addiction is connection, and I never would have come up with that
Wow.
by
Yeah.
myself. But it's interesting you say that. Is sometimes it just takes a cousin, and sometimes it's day after day after day. And I've heard sometimes it's hour after hour because that battle is hard and it is real. But that's what he said, and I've loved it, and I'm kind of sticking to it when it comes to somebody struggling. And I know it's kind of a depression, anxiety struggle. is just connect with them, just listen, just connect with them. That's kind of how I do it. And then
Cody,
yeah,
that may be, and not to interrupt you, I want you to keep going, but that may be like the big lesson in tonight's interview.
Awesome.
I'm serious.
If it helps anybody, yeah, awesome.
That's fantastic. So the opposite of addiction is connection.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Okay, keep moving forward with that.
Yeah, and to just emphasize a little more, he said it because the struggles and the hardship comes when you're alone. It's harder when you've got a friend and you've got somebody you can connect with and you can walk through. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm tempted with. If I can get it, I was blessed with the opportunity to go to Coyote Ridge correction facility, Connell. Not time there, but I was blessed to visit there.
There's still time. There's still time for you, brother.
But anyways, lots of people have gone in, and the inmates, if you met them on the street, they're good men.
Yeah.
That just made a mistake. But anyways, the spirit's hard to beat out in Medicine City, first and second ward. It's just, you get those old timers and they'll just tell you what it is, and you feel the spirit. Half of the men have been bishops before, so they all got great experience. But anyways, it was incredible to come home right off the mission. It was only a week or two after, and just one of the most spiritual experiences I've ever had in my life. I mean, just powerful. And they say, we think they'd heard that before, the inmates, and they say, if you guys are feeling that, part of it's because everybody in here knows we've made a mistake, and everybody knows it's okay to share it. And I think that's one of the things that some of these wards in the church and the outside world, they try to put on a facade, or what you were saying, they kind of have that, they feel that need to be self-righteous, or they just try to look better than what's going on. And little do they know it's hindering them from connection and from healing with somebody else that might be struggling. And because they're lying to themselves, maybe they're missing opportunities to serve and to help and to pray, to exercise faith and repentance. But just those two things I thought are just, I love those. Those are two experiences that have definitely molded my decisions in relationships I make and decisions I make in life. Sorry, that may have been kind of long, but
not at all. Those are solid. Now, how, I have something I can throw in here, but I want to hear what you have to say first. Sure. How can we make it easier on people?
I think of my struggles. I struggle with masturbation, and it's back. I mean, still a struggle. I'm still a man. But I think what was it that got me to talk to the bishop when I was getting ready to go on a mission, and even younger than that. I'll be honest, it was two things, well, three. The spirit just pounding me, just constantly telling me, you need to talk. You need to talk. Partly because I just didn't understand it. You're 12, 13 years old, 14 years old, and you just don't know what's going on. So I talked to Bishop. Bishop tells me, you need to talk to your parents. And that was one thing that helped a lot, talking to parents. And then what ultimately got me there was knowing no matter what happened or what I said or what I'd done, mom and dad were still going to love me, and that bishop was still going to love me. And I think it's hard to do, but if you can be the personality or the type of person that people know, no matter what happens, he's still going to love me. She's still going to love me. I think that's one way I've tried to act and interact with people. And sometimes it can be little things, and you just got to keep your cool, because you don't know when people are looking for it or what they're going through. But I think that's the biggest thing that's helped me in my relationships, all across the board. Serious relationships with girls, and then the cousins I live with, to the family members that I love. I will always love you. No matter what you do or say, I'm always there for you. And having that, I think, makes it easier to make it simple.
That's awesome. So there has to be a way, and maybe it's just consistency, but there has to be a way to convey that to everyone, to brethren, to cousins, so that, because I think there's a tendency, maybe not as much as there used to be, but there's a tendency to be judged or to look askance at someone rather than just putting your arm around them. It's akin to someone who shows up at church not dressed in clothing that the rest of the world is dressed in. And to me, it's always like, so what? Is that the fine apparel that they're talking about in the Book of Mormon?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like sometimes in our zeal to try to be Christ-like, we're the most un-Christ-like. Like, it's appropriate to dress up. We should dress up in our church clothes, but wow, if let's say we're inviting someone to church who doesn't have any church clothes, we want them to be able to show up dressed how they're dressed. And so I wonder sometimes, would it be better to dress down so that they feel more comfortable, or would it be better to take them shopping? In other words, my point is that not everybody comes at things from the same standpoint. For example, we sing the song, I am a child of God. I am a child of God, and he has sent me here, has given me an earthly home with parents kind and dear. And actually, when that first started to hit me the wrong way was when I taught out at Coyote Ridge. You bring up Coyote Ridge, I taught out there for 4 years.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, for the university I taught, or for Columbia Basin College I taught. And the thought, every time now in church, whenever I hear the song, I am a child of God, and he's, with parents kind and dear, I always think, not everybody's got parents kind and dear, and so, like, I don't know why my heart goes there, probably because in the same vein that I don't think we are entitled to anything, I don't even think we're entitled to think I don't know, Cody, this is tough because you can't be all things to all people, but how do you approach this situation where, nothing's ever going to be equal for all people. Equal opportunity doesn't even exist for all people. Yeah. I look at, I think the social media opens this up for me. I got these people, I think I always worry that there's some kind of nefarious business dealing that they're reaching out to me for, but, people from Ghana or, Kenya or Tanzania, right? And they say they're Christian. And I don't know. I have to take them at their word, right? Whatever. But even if they weren't, even if they said they were Muslim, or even if they said they were something else, they come from a whole different background than me. So to be a good Christian, I have to put aside my discomfort, right? Because it's not familiar to me, but I maybe have to get into situations that are a little bit dangerous. And maybe it's just dangerous emotionally. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Because that does go through my mind, even here, right? Okay, so kids, human trafficking is a big deal right now, and probably always has been. But when I was at Coyote Ridge, that just hit me. Like, I saw the same thing you did. These are good guys. Man, who knows what they could have become if they had parents kind and dear. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Golly, see, and I don't even know if there's one of the problems with finding problems is easy.
Finding solutions is hard.
Yeah. It's easy to be a critic. It's easy to look out and find out what's wrong. It's one of the reasons I really like your attitude about things, because, you talk about the folks who work for you. If you are in a hiring situation or a management situation, and I've been in many, it is so easy to find a reason to fire somebody. I mean, it is a piece of cake to find a reason to fire somebody.
Yep. Yep.
But when you accept that their outcome is largely dependent upon your training,
Yeah.
right? Yep. If you have to fire them, that's a failure on your part, not on their part, because that just means they didn't learn what they need to learn, right? So,
yeah.
Anyway, tell me this: we know what you're going to do professionally. What are your? Have you set spiritual goals for yourself for like the next 5 years? Do you know what you?
So recent, I'll tell you my most recent one. Wesley encouraged me to read. There's yearly devotionals. They call it Evening with an Apostle, and it might be more frequent than that, but that they have for seminary institute and probably even college professor, university stuff for BYUI, Hawaii, or anything. They broadcast them, but it's open to the public. So one of them, the last one, I think it was 2019 because they canceled the 2021 with Elder Bednar in 2019. And one of the questions asked is, interesting you should say this. It's a talent that you have to be able to maybe not read, but feel. Kind of you see someone's face and it's kind of a reading, but for me, it's more of a feeling like, there's something different about that person. Or when you get to know people, you can kind of feel something's not okay with them or something's going on. I need to talk to them. But the teacher asked, how are we able to come to that level? He says there's lots of training on how we listen and how we teach and how we pray for the students and how to listen to the Spirit during the lesson. But how do we really get that into our hearts? And so the challenge that I took up from Elder Bednar is go through the Book of Mormon, and you can do it with all the standard works, but really look for phrases of eyes to see and ears to hear. So currently that's something I'm trying to get good at. I had a really good seminary teacher who was good at that. She was able to read people, and she was able to. They'd walk into the class and she'd say, "Hey, what's going on?" Or Brother Edmonds, he's up here and he's kind of giving me some insight. So that's currently one I'm working on. And hopefully in the next 5 years, most kids my age are saying this, but hopefully I'm married and I'm working on becoming a good father, which I've got incredible. I'm lucky because I'm the youngest. So I've got 5 brothers' mistakes and good things to learn from, and an angel sister that's doing it perfectly in my eyes. And so that's one thing I really strive for. That looks like hard work, but I think that's the pinnacle of what a young man and a young woman can become as a father and a mother that are just doing their absolute best to bring children into the world and to rear them up correctly. So that's my goal. Those are the 2 most prominent and biggest ones I could give you.
Man, you're a fine young man.
No. I memorized those answers 2 nights ago.
It's funny. So I want to. I don't want to let you go quite yet. I want to ask you this first because I was going through. At some point down the road, I'm gonna make Taylor reach back out to me, but I'm gonna bring Taylor in for an interview as well. So I was looking through he and Tommy's pictures on their Facebook to see if there was something I could use for his thumbnail. And I don't know that I found anything yet, but one of the things that occurred to me is that those guys are like adventurous. I mean, anything that moves or, like they've been on everything with wheels, I think, and skis and tracks and together. Right.
Yeah.
What do you see as a great adventure that you want to do? Or when you think about, like, okay, they went to a place, for example, together in the southernmost point in the United States, which was like 70 miles from Cuba, down in the Florida Keys, and they took pictures of it, right? And I thought that was cool. And then they take pictures out in the dunes, and they take pictures at the coast, and they, what do you see as an adventure that you want to do, that you want to accomplish? I don't want it esoteric either. I don't want you to say something like, I really hope that the next adventure I go on is a mission with my wife. I don't want to hear that.
I hear you. I hear you. The older I get, the more fascinated I become with history. So I love beautiful views, but at the same time, I'm really easy to please. So if you showed me a sunset of any place, I'd probably like it. So when it comes to views, it's not hard to satisfy me there. But I love hallowed ground, if I could say that.
You want to go to Gettysburg, don't you?
Would love Gettysburg. I would love my have to do is the Pioneer Trek. I have to do that ground and shed tears there for the people that came across, that sacrificed limbs and blood and family members. But after that, a little more fun one is Belize, and get out to the Keys out in Belize, and then get into the ruins, and then back to Elsa, which is where I served my mission. But there's history and there's tribal history there.
Wait. I don't think that didn't stick in my mind. You served a mission in Belize?
Yes, sir. So it was part. So,
wow, I feel half retarded. Go ahead, tell me about this.
No, you're fine. So El Salvador, in it's got 3 missions, and
everybody knows you never go full retard. You went full retard, man.
So they're not
never go full retard.
Take airplane rides there, but yeah, just a beautiful country, gorgeous country. And Uncle Tim, I love both those countries. I love them. I love those people just because they're so different. They're so unique. They're such goofballs sometimes.
Did you meet the German Baptist population in Belize?
Absolutely. There were more Mennonites. It was mostly Mennonites.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. That's probably what I should have. Yeah, okay.
You're okay. But yeah, they run, when it comes to industry, they own the dairy and the tractors. They're all the agriculture and dairy. Anything there comes from the Mennonites.
Last time we were there with the family, we took a long bus ride to some ruins, and I was just shocked. We're traveling through these areas that look like they could have been anywhere in the United States. Yeah. John Deere's moving down the road, and I mean, you're like, what? This is like Central America. What's going on here? And it's crazy.
And then the guy in the John Deere's got his top hat and his beard, and then you go 5 miles down the road, and there's a guy with the same setup, but he's riding a horse and buggy, right?
Right.
So interesting, yeah.
But so they said the same thing. All right, so who was it said? Oh, so we were told, I don't know if this is true or not, we were told that if it wasn't for the Mennonites, those people who are there who run all those farms, the country would starve. Like, they're producing everything for the country and exports and everything else.
I wouldn't be surprised. That's one of the reasons I want to go back, is I just want to learn more about Belize and how it functions. I heard the Mennonites left Mexico because they were getting taxed too heavy, and Belize said, hey, come do our stuff and we won't tax you. And that's why they're there. Now, how much of that is true, I have no idea. But it would make sense, because a lot of those people still speak German, fleeing the war. There's a lot of history there. And they're open people, and they've got a culture of themselves. There's a culture in the church, and there's a culture there. There's more traditional or orthodox, and then there's the newer ones. So there's a lot to learn. They were good people that I'd love to learn more about, meet some of them, even go to their services. Their services weren't as hectic. A lot of them, they reminded me of ours. There was one person up front speaking calmly, reading from scripture, and just good people. I'd love to learn.
Did you feel accepted there?
Absolutely. Both of those countries, I felt accepted. Some people were obviously harder, or they'd had bad experiences. Blacks in the priesthood was definitely a problem in Belize, but a lot of times it was an excuse that people would pull to not talk to us. They'd say, we don't want to. They know that's old news. It's been old for a long time. So, but yeah, both countries very accepting of the missionary.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I don't know how I don't even know how big the church is there, but when there was a time we were in Honduras, and we're just, I don't know why we're going up and down these streets, but somebody's showing us kind of the countryside, and it's kind of seems like kind of a poor area of town, but we stop and we're looking out over the ocean, we're looking out, and we look up the hill this way, and there's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is right there. It's an old dumpy building, but yeah. It's like, it's one of the things I love about the church is, everywhere you go, you got friends.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. Yeah. Anywhere you go.
So when do you want to go back to Belize? Do you want to teach seminary down there maybe?
That's another thing. I would totally be open in any Latin America country to teach seminary, because there's something different about seminary kids there, or teenagers there. It's that you get that generation that's still getting spanked by their parents and told to hush up. We all know Latina mamas there. They don't take crap, which I love. It's awesome. But they're also raised in very controversial, or the adversary is thick. He has a thick influence of those countries, which I'm sure you go in, it's very apparent in everything, in music, in the literature.
What does that tell you?
What does that tell me?
I'll tell you what it tells me. You go first, though. If you say what I'm thinking, I'll just say ditto.
It tells me America's the greatest country in this world.
Okay. You could be right. No, I do believe that's right. So what I was going to say was, wherever I see the adversary working overtime, that means there's huge potential there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's prophesied the Lamanites will blossom as a rose. And it's coming true. You look at those, you go down there, and of course, as the missionary, you want to get 1,000 baptisms in a mission, but it's coming true. Just those people, when they go pretty strong. Once they really grasp what's going on, and it's happening. There's a lot of potential in those youth down there, which that would be a lot of fun. Teaching seminary down there would be.
I'm thinking that you might have a little Latina honey in your future.
Hey, we'll see. We'll see.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We're running out of time, but to sign off tonight before we go, because I don't know, I didn't feel like we're going to have to do this again, because I didn't feel like we got to as many questions as I wanted to get to, but that's my fault because I can't shut up. But
I love it, Uncle Tim. I love it. I'm going to go back and rewatch this. And my part, I'm just going to watch in twice the speed, and then I'm going to go half speed for yours.
No. Don't do that. Just erase me. But so of all the things we did talk about, though, what is something I didn't ask you, or something you didn't talk about, that when we hang up the phone, you're going to wish that you had?
You covered all of the stuff I was thinking of.
You're going to think of something, I promise.
Oh, I know.
You'll probably just be like, I wish Uncle Tim hadn't been so. I wish he hadn't talked so much in my interview. It's my interview. How come he talks so much? Because he's Uncle Tim, and Uncle Tim always just talks. He just talks.
I'd love to hear, and I don't know who you'll do this with. I hope I'd love to hear people's, I feel like it might be a bit of a taboo subject for some, but I feel like most people are willing to share it. But how they fell in love, I think that's something that kind of gets pushed under the rug. I was very new, especially getting raised in the home we were. Most of the boys didn't even kiss a girl till they were 22, So I would be so it's something still new to me, very new. Dating is very different. So I would love to hear, I could have shared my experience, which is fine. We don't have to get into that, but I'd love to hear some other of the cousins.
No, I think the only person I even asked that was maybe Blair.
Okay.
I can't remember if it was Blair or if it was Kiowa that answered that question, but you're right. I mean, that would be interesting. Well, probably get into it with Taylor.
Yeah. Awesome. But I think it'd be good because everybody's story is different, and it shows the variety of ways the answers and promptings and struggles can come. And I would love to hear that from the other cousins, because I think you're making the biggest decision of your life, and I would love to hear more because there's awesome stories that come from it. And I'd love to hear yours in the future, Uncle Tim. I don't really know much about you and Aunt Tina.
That's true. No one's asked. Well, of course, I haven't really given anybody the opportunity to ask. So, yeah.
I'd love to hear you guys' story.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, but.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I can see the smile it puts on your face. I'd love to hear it. Uncle Tim.
Well, it's just that, okay, so I'll just do this real quick, and then we'll get into detail another time. But so what I got off I literally married the first girl I met off my mission. But I wanted to get married. The thing my mission president told me when I got off my mission was, okay, your next responsibility is to get married. And I literally was taking life that way, like, okay, check. And but I went down to visit with my cousin Donna Clonch, and she was just working down in Provo, wasn't going to school or anything. She was living in some housing, and she had some roommates, and stopped in there one Saturday morning, and hadn't met anybody, hadn't dated anybody. I think I'd been home maybe a couple of weeks, and Aunt Tina was standing there with, huh? Yeah, I'm telling the story. She doesn't want me to tell the story. Aunt Tina's standing there. She got one foot up on the kind of kicked back and up on the couch, and just kind of standing there. She's in her house coat, and it's Saturday morning, and I'm like, why, just getting up or something. I was still pretty open to just bolting out discussions with people.
Mm-hmm.
And found out that she was doing her laundry, and Aunt Tina had this habit of doing all of her laundry at the same time. So she didn't have anything to wear except her house coat. And I thought, I don't know, I just thought that was kind of hot, and and she was living with my cousin, so what a perfect excuse to come visit my cousin. And we started dating, and we got married a year and a half later.
Awesome.
But
and that's only a fraction of the story. That's just how you met. I'd love to hear
it is, and it ended up being good for me. But it's one of those things that doesn't really work today. You get out, there's so many divorces. You get off your mission, you marry the first girl that comes along, and man, it doesn't work out a lot of times very well. And so that's why I'm kind of happy that some of my nephews are taking their time to find the right girl that's attracted to them, because I think that's really critical. But we'll get into it next time.
Sounds good. Thank you, Uncle Tim. I really enjoyed this. This has been good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And count on it again. We could get to it sooner than later if a lot of people don't want to do it. But if as many people cancel on me that canceled over the last weekend, we'll be interviewing you again in about 2 weeks. So
sounds good to me. I'd love to hear from those other people, though. Heard enough of my own voice tonight.
No, you're great. I appreciate you being willing and challenging me to get back on the horse, because I wasn't feeling too good about things. So
I'm glad you're doing it, Uncle Tim. You've got a challenge. You're good. You're good.
Thanks, Code.
No problem.
I love you.
Love you too, Uncle Tim. You and your family and all your boys.
Praying for your success.
Thank you.
All right. Take it easy, man.
You too.
Bye-bye.